Howdy.
Hi.
I'm so nervous. It's been a few weeks since I've done a live. I'm just like. So, hello and welcome. Thank you, Jack, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is amazing. I know we've been talking for a little while already, but I'm like it's really real now, and it's wonderful, and I really appreciate this.
So, Jack is another fellow Ex Jehovah's Witness who went from being anti-LGBTQ to part of the community like myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, we thought we'd do a show based around that and talk about how that happened and growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and what that was like for you. So thank you, and we appreciate you telling us your experiences. So we've got a few comments right off the bat. Hi friends, hello. I can't see your name unless you click on the link where it says share your details with StreamYard, and then once you do that, you'll be able to come up on screen with your name. So I normally start off by, hi Courtney. I normally start off by asking my guest, Jack, how did you come to be a Jehovah's Witness?
So I was born in. I'm I guess second generation, because my grandparents came in, and then would that be third generation? I don't remember.
Yeah,
But my
grandparents third.
Yeah, third. So my grandparents were brought in. They brought their children in, and then I was brought in. And specifically, I'm actually of holy, kingly, and priestly blood, because my family are there's three people in my family who claim that they're going to be better than everyone else. So, and for those of you who don't know, so I have three in my family who are claimed to be anointed, and four actually. I forgot my brother also. So I have my grandpa and grandmother were anointed as far as I could remember. That was something they both claimed to be, and so growing up, there was a lot of pressure to be like this perfect family that everyone looked up to, and we had to be the best. It was for anyone in any other religions, this would be like having having a priest as your parents. Essentially, it wasn't just like you're in the cult, you're in it, and your parents are the indicators.
I feel bad for you. Like, I was an elder's daughter, and that was bad enough. So to have that to live up to, wow.
It was really intense. My dad didn't actually come out as anointed until about a few months before I left. Actually, it was one of the things that kind of put the icing on the cake, and my older brother one of my older brothers did as well. And honestly, at that point, it was kind of like I just couldn't. It was knowing who they were and knowing what they were. I'm like, at that point, I don't want to be judged by you. That's you guys. If you're going to be the kings and judges in heaven, then I'd rather not be there.
Yeah. That's a point. I didn't think about it from that angle.
Just knowing that. But that's so I was third generation, and I got married very young, and I still have a lot of respect for my wife. I have my ex-wife. I have a lot of everything's fine. We just were totally different people, completely. As soon as we left, we helped each other get out. We escaped from prison together. And but we got married very, very young. I mean, we both were just turning 18, and we escaped and tried to figure things out and everything, and it was rough. Leaving and changing seeing how people are in it and how they change and how that all changes. Everything changes, despite how much Jehovah's Witnesses say that they're always been the same and they're always the same, and seeing how much people can change even within it. And you go back and you look at people still in it, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't even knock on doors anymore. Now we just hold carts, and now we do this, and now it's like, well, if even you guys can change, then then everyone can.
And you saying getting married young, like it's the thing. Like I was engaged at 19 and I called off an engagement which was very frowned upon just before I left. And you know, like you say, you get married so young and then you don't know that person because you're not allowed to live with them or you're not allowed to even spend time alone with them. So then you're all of a sudden living with someone that a few years down the line you realise you're not compatible as marriage partners, obviously, but you don't get the chance to experience that before you get married. So you get so many like youngsters in that religion stuck in unhappy marriages, and you were quite lucky that you both managed to get out together, because quite often as well one will want to leave and then one doesn't, and that must be like again a really awkward situation to be stuck in, because then you can only get divorced if your partner commits adultery.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's complicated.
yeah. So were your parents really strict then because of, you know, obviously being
So one thing that I think that the JWs do really well is to teach you to self-police. And so they were really good at getting us to be strict with ourselves. And so it was honestly I feel like that's worse when you can get. And so I've dedicated my life afterwards to helping to teaching children and to educating adults on how to educate children and not forcing them to be to feel like they have to tell them how to be or what to be, because there's and even this right now, this was wonderful. I really appreciate you doing this, because this is actually the platform on which I wanted to do this about this particularly, is because there's so much in that mentality, and parents don't even realize it. I don't think my parents were ever maliciously trying to get my brothers to pitting against each other. I don't think they were ever maliciously trying to make us all feel guilty all the time about everything always, right? You know that ultimately what the worst part about that religion is that they are they're really good, and I say use the word good loosely, but they're really skilled at getting you to do to break your own, to code yourself, to program yourself to being the worst possible person, you know, to being in this mentality. And I don't think that I don't think parents in that mentality know they're even doing it. They don't know what damage they're doing until someone approach them and say, hey, did you know this is damaging? Did you know that this is something that's hurting? And you know, can we talk about this? Can we analyze this? Because I don't think you're meaning to hurt these kids or meaning to hurt these people, but you are. But I can, yeah, I'm jumping ahead and going all into that part about the education. But yeah, whenever you're ready for that.
I was third generation as well, so it made me stop and think, well, my mom went through this as a kid. Like my granddad was really strict, like he was a bit only JW magazines allowed, no radio, no TV. He literally wore wellies and 3 Macs, like Coat Macs.
Okay.
Like, and they found out that he died because he didn't turn up to the assembly, and they found him passed away in bed, sat up reading the Watchtower.
Oh.
So my mom went through being brought up by that person, and then she passed that on to doing the same to us. So when you're third generation, I don't understand like why. Now I'm like, I haven't got kids, but my brother and sister, like, they would never put their kids through that. So it makes me wonder, like, how does our generations above us not, you know what I mean, think kind of the same way?
Right. I think it's a cycle of abuse, and I that's why I guess a big part of it is when you've indoctrinated yourself with the self-policing, and you don't have no reason to question that self-policing. And we were talking a little bit beforehand in our makeup session. We were saying the whole thing about there's I really want to believe that these people are not, that a lot of people are, and even not even JWs. This is just across the board. Everyone grew up and they didn't have, they always look and they go, well, I didn't have it that bad, or you would have had it worse if you had my parent or all that. So they believe what they are doing is a better as a progress, and that's true. You know, I always think of that carousel progress idea. But then when you see the next generation of people then push progress even further, then you have to then look at that and say, okay, well, now there's these new identities. And so I'm not raising my kids to be racist because I grew up with my parents being racist. So I'm not going to do that. And so they think they've already succeeded in being better, but already in their timeline, another movement of things has happened and a new change of progress has happened. And so when that happens, if you're still stuck in just trying to teach what your parents didn't, then you're not trying to teach what your children should be learning to be better as well. All you're doing is just fixing the past, not preparing for the future. And that is such a pivotal point that was, and just I guess if it's okay if I start rolling down that to the idea of being anti something to being part of it.
Yeah.
What hit me and what was it actually was about the identity of racism. I grew up in Southern California, and I am Hispanic, but I'm white passing. I'm fine. I can be friends with the Hispanic kids. I know it was not taught Spanish because my grandmother and mother thought that if we had accents, we would be bullied and we would be oppressed, even though having the Spanish knowledge would have been really great because, you know, you make 7% more at jobs, you know? And so there's this back and forth idea of like, what is the right thing to do for your children, right? There's this whole fight about it and what should you and shouldn't you do? And when you start thinking, well, I don't want my kids bullied because I was bullied this way, so they're going to be bullied too, not realizing and not keeping up and keeping a pulse on what is progressing, we don't take into consideration that the bullying, that we're basically perpetuating problems and systemic problems by letting the bullies decide how things should be at school. And my greatest example of this is in the US, we have the history of the Little Rock Nine. And this is in Arkansas, in the state of Arkansas, it was one of a state that was really deep in the Bible Belt, and they did not want these black kids to go to school. And so when they showed up, the mayor tried to stop them from going to school. The police showed up, and then they had to literally the president had to fly in the what are they called? Not Secret Service, just a military group to help them go to school. And these kids got bullied on the regular. They were harassed. They were mistreated. And when everyone got older, it was on the Oprah show. They brought in these kids. They brought in the Little Rock Nine. These kids, they were given medals of honor for going and dealing with what they dealt with, for being these kids who pushed segregation forward. And then they also had on Oprah, though, they had the bullies come forward and apologize to them. And one thing I always want to say to any adult who says, I don't think that my kids should know this or learn this, and when you're seeing progress move forward and you're seeing the world move forward, is don't tell your kids anything that they don't have your kids be the people who have to apologize later. If your children are going to have to apologize to another group of people later when you're seeing the progress happen, then that's something that hurts. And that's something that hit me because I have to apologize now to the LGBTQ community for how I treated them. I have to sit here, and because of how my parents raised me, I am literally part of it. And yet I still have to say, I am so sorry to everyone I rolled my eyes at during the 2000s and scoffed at and got angry at when I was walking into a grocery store and saw you signing petitions, and I spit in your direction, and I was angry at you because I was raised to not want to accept what was already happening and what was already moving forward, what was already being a progressive thing. And it's funny because even in the JWs, you'll see this where they will find new light and be more accepting of something if it becomes a legal issue and they have to be accepting of it, right? It's like they get called out and everything. And this happens all the time. So why wait until it's legally accepted to be accepting when you could literally be the people who were on the forefront of progress? Yeah. So that's yeah.
The Bible matters to them, and that's it. That's like their be all and end all, like the Bible first. So, you know, until they are put under being prosecuted, which is not persecution. One of my favorite sayings is prosecution is not persecution.
Until I love that.
Until they are prosecuted for things, they won't change their mind on things. But, and you know, our conversation earlier, I was saying, you know, I consider myself to be an activist, and what I do is the future's history, and that's why I do what I do, to try and change things. And you know, we were brought up to be anti-gay and anti a lot of things, and now we've obviously changed for the better, and you know, we can make the future better. And you know, just the fact that we can contribute to that, I think it kind of not makes up for our past, but at least, you know, we can start making a difference in that direction ourselves. And it's great that there is such a big Ex Jehovah's Witness LGBTQ community, and you still get a few, obviously, that I boot out of my group because they come in and they're like, that's wrong, that's unnatural, because some have still got that whole mentality of the JW thinking. But as a whole, I think, you know, it's great that we've got that little network within our community to support each other.
Good comments. I'm
yeah, we've got some more to flash up.
The colorblind, yeah, I 100% agree. The idea that oh no, all lives matter, right? Or all, you know, I always approach the idea of, well, if you know, honestly, the only thing that all matter is maybe all beliefs matter, all gods matter. Let's let's be real, you know, because once you start isolating and you don't. But, and again, even that, no, because there's some gods that are awful. I mean, so, you know, or maybe a better way of putting it is intolerance is, we have to be intolerant of some things in order to be tolerant of everyone. If you want to be tolerant of everyone, you have to be intolerant of intolerance. And that's huge.
And if all lives matter, then why have people got an issue with people saying Black Lives Matter?
Right.
Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Ooh. Like people were saying, well, if people say protect the dolphins, well, you know, people don't come in and go, what about the penguins? What about this? And what about this animal? It's just like, because it doesn't make sense to do that. But, you know.
Yeah.
You get those. So going back to you being a Jehovah's Witness kid, so did you enjoy having to go to meetings and field service and all that type of?
Okay, so so my personal experience, and this is interesting, is I kind of had a love-hate relationship with being in the JWs. I always say I learned to read in prison. I love how much I experienced, and I won't say this is something for everyone. Not everyone who was an Ex JW and went and was able to take advantage of every opportunity to find to go into books, you know, into older books and everything, and to study and to learn to read that classical writing in a way that causes you to do critical thinking and everything. And I think this is honestly something I do have to say is oftentimes more presented to males than females. Women in the hall are told, you know, no, don't worry about the critical thinking stuff. Whereas, you know, as a boy growing up, it was like, soon you're going to be reading the Secret Elder book and you're going to have access to this and that. So really, really get good at this and do this and do that. So I did learn to, I do have to give it not credit, because it was me doing it. It was me making the pursuits for it. It was me taking that energy and doing that. And also, actually, my ex-wife was brilliant, and she was a fantastic reader. So she was really good at digesting information, and we were really good at I was good at extrapolating it and finding all the connections between it and everything. And honestly, that was how we got out of the cult. I remember coming home one day, and she just had all the old bond volumes and magazines all sprawled out with red string across them, you know, and she's like, it doesn't make sense. It's broken. And I almost snapped. I was like, what are you talking about? No, you're, you know, who have you been talking to? Right. Because that's number one question is somebody else told you this. You couldn't have possibly come to these conclusions on your own. And then she looked at me and she said, that right there, that attitude, what you just said doesn't that sound insane? And you know how smart I am, and you think I couldn't figure this out. And I was like, oh my gosh. All right, let's sit down. We'll talk for 5 minutes. Tell me what you found. And then after about, 3 or 4 days of delving into it, oh man, we were done. I know one thing that was really difficult was, the idea that I had this beautiful ideal that now that we knew the real truth, I would go to my parents and I would tell them and I would express it to them, and they would listen, and it would be beautiful, and we'd all, I would save everyone and all this stuff. And I remember just going, hey, can we have a conversation? I'm having doubts, all this different things. And they just looked at me and said, then we don't, and they said, well, you need to pray. And when you don't have doubts anymore, then you can come talk to us. And I said, they said, I said, well, can I talk with you? And my dad told me, I don't need you in my house shaking my faith. And that broke everything.
Wow.
He was an elder. He was anointed, all this stuff. I don't need you in my house shaking my faith. And so I kind of just responded, if I can shake your faith, then the foundation of your faith is what's rocky, not me.
Yeah.
And then that was the last thing I ever said to any of my family. They called everybody. I got disconnected from everyone I ever knew, all my childhood friends, everybody. Thankfully, I have one friend actually who lives about 20 minutes away, who was my best friend's younger sister growing up. And we were close in the Kingdom Hall, and I knew her and everything. So her escaping as well was wonderful. And I have my older brother, and he lives out in Texas, and he is amazing. And he left really young. It took us a long time to reconcile, because like I said, and this is one thing I do want to let XJWs know, if it takes you a while to get connected with other XJWs, even ones you think you should just immediately be best friends with, you got to throw that out. Your experience is not their experience. Their experience is not your experience. Just being an XJW does not connect you. Yeah. So when we give the opportunity, when you go on like the X groups and everything, and not everyone is thinking the way you do or feels the way you do about it, that is good. The diversity is what makes you better. When you allow yourself to look at that diversity, to see these different people behaving in different ways, and not that you have to do it too. That's not the point. That's the point of the JWs. The JWs say, I'm doing this thing, therefore you have to do it. Yep. We're, what you provide, Emma, with your page and everything, and what I've seen with other hopefully the best ones, are always, you don't have to be like us now just because you left. Be like whatever you are because you left. That's the point. And
that's why, sorry, when people say my group, because it's called Ex Jehovah's Witness Unite, they say we should all be united. I'm like, no, I mean, let's all unite, come together in this one place, not in mind and thought, because we're all, but people do like have the preconceived idea that you leave and then everybody thinks the same, and it's like you said, it's not like that anymore. We're free now to find ourselves and figure out our own beliefs. And still, like, I've been left 24 years and I still don't know what I believe in some aspects, so you can't expect it as well to happen overnight and know what you believe in and don't believe in. So I've got a question from Amy for you. What is your thinking when parents say their child saying they are LGBTQ is for attention or a fad? I've heard this a lot lately. Scary how dismissive that is.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually, because I think one thing that happens is we associate, and this was also something I wanted to talk about. We associate this notion, and we're constantly looking for a breakdown. And I have been down the entire gamut of everything that a person uses to destroy the LGBTQ community. I mean, I'll even throw one out, like, oh, well, hey, there's a B in there. That's bisexual, right? Therefore, genders are binary, and therefore non-binary and gender fluid doesn't exist. And this is, so that doesn't it sound so foolproof? Doesn't it sound so brilliant? And the trouble is that, yes, binary it's not a binary, this exists, so therefore this doesn't. So what ends up happening is that do you have children that are doing this for attention? Do you have the answer to that question is yes. Are all children doing this for attention? No. But is anything you do for attention bad? And this is the third question that has to be asked. When we do things for attention, especially as children, what is the problem with that? When a child decides to start singing to their parents, are they doing that for attention, or are they doing that to see if they want to become a singer in their life? If a child goes and says, watch me hit this baseball with this bat, are they doing that for attention, or are they doing that because that's something they do want to do for their life, or is it just a fad? And so the answer to your question, and what I really, really thank you for asking that, because that's a brilliant way beautiful way to say, is essentially dismissing anything because something is for attention or a fad is dangerous, because children do everything with the wanting to get the approval of their parents and seeing how they accept it or what happens with them. So, I mean, and everything. And we have a normative situation that we have in our society. If you see a little boy in a tuxedo, right, because he's going to a wedding, what do you tell him? You say, "Oh, look what a handsome man you are. Look how you look so great." And we give them that, and we give them that attention. Even though there's 50 other people in tuxedos as well, all these adults in tuxedos, we're not sitting there going up to every adult going, "Oh, what a handsome man you are. What a handsome man you are." We're not doing that. But we do that with that child. And so we create this normative, or we see a girl in a really pretty dress and we see them in this makeup and we see all that stuff and we say, "Oh, look how beautiful you are. Look how," and we do that. So when we see a child go, I really like that and I'm enjoying that, and we see them do that, they might do that and they might put on that makeup and enjoy it, and it might be a fad. But why was that harmful? Did we perpetuate it? Because honestly, you put that kid in a tuxedo doesn't mean that from then on they're going to want to wear tuxedos. They might go and after they're done, they throw that thing off and put on, a black choker and spike their hair up and do whatever they want to do. So everything having to do with dress and gender normatives or gender identity is all about when a child looks at something and says, "That appeals to me. I don't know why, but it could be a fad, or it could be something that I want in my life forever." And that, I think, is what's really important, because clothing isn't permanently on us. It's not something that is attached to us now and now decides what we are or who we are. It's this morning, if you were on the makeup thing and everything, I this morning I had a 5 o'clock shadow and my hair was up, and I'm and now this is who I look like, and this is what I look like. And it allows me to behave in a certain way. It allows me to be more open to being able to communicate with people that look at me and go, "Oh, well, I feel safe talking to you because of years of evolution and cultural indoctrination." And I go, "Great. I'm really happy that made you feel that way. It's not for you, but I'm glad that made you feel that way. It made me that way. And it makes me feel this way, and it makes me do this, and this is why I'm doing it. So it doesn't matter about what you want to do." So for the children who are seeking attention, why is giving children attention a bad thing? For children who are doing this fad, why is letting a child experience a fad a bad thing? And for children who are going to stick with it and do it, why is that a bad thing? And that's what we have to really look at.
See, I'm not a parent myself, but I have nieces and nephews, and I've always been like, "Oh, my niece wants to dye her hair pink. Well, we'll do it." At the end of the day, it's like kids need to experience things, and parents should, not that I'm judging parents, but in my opinion, parents should let their kids express themselves and do things. Like if that child's not harming themselves or anybody else, let them be expressive. Like, we were very restricted. We couldn't dye our hair funky colors. Like, I wasn't even allowed to follow fashion, so I was limited with clothes and stuff like that. So I'm very much now like, if your kid wants to spike his hair and put on eyeliner, let him do it. If it lasts a week, then so be it. But let kids go through these experiences and discover themselves, because especially like us, we left the religion. I was 21. I didn't really know who I was. I lived a double life for about 2 years, and I was like kind of finding out that I was into metal, I was into being goth and grunge and that kind of stuff. But it took me till about 19 until I started like discovering this about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wasn't allowed to experience it because I was very limited on it. So, you know, then you end up in like your 20s and 30s still trying to figure out who you are as a person. And
Mm-hmm.
I would never do that to another child now because I know what it's like going through that.
I really love that. And okay, so I always love to tell this story now because it was one that was given to me by my brother. And he's sort of the Thor to my Loki. I don't know if you've seen any of those the memes around where Thor is being very supportive of Loki being transgender and everything, but he tells a story about butterflies, and he talks about how a butterfly. We have this Western thinking in our head of we think of a butterfly going, or a caterpillar going into a chrysalis, right? Wraps itself around in some kind of thing, and then it pops out and its wings pop out, right? That's our thinking. But that's not what happens to that caterpillar. It's amazing what happens to that caterpillar. This story just blew me away. I was in tears when I heard it. When a caterpillar goes into a chrysalis, it makes that chrysalis from its own body. It rips off its skin and creates a chrysalis around itself from its own skin. And over time, it becomes basically a gelatinous, embryonic species again. It becomes just goo. And then it rebuilds itself from that with new abilities, new identity. There's new everything. It has eyes that can now see differently. It has an ability to navigate the way birds do, where it knows where to fly and where to go. And the caterpillar didn't have any of these abilities. It reconstructs almost every cell of its body. We, as humans, do the exact same thing. We are constantly sloughing off every atom of who we are. Over a 7-year time, you will not have the same atoms in your body that you did 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And in time, you can change who you are. I have been so many things in my life. If you want to throw up the shot of all the things I have acted as or performed in or do all that, because we as humans have these experiences where we feel we need to go and take control or do things and feel like we have a certain amount of control in our lives. And so we take certain actions to take those controls, and for me personally, that was as soon as I left, went immediately into acting. I don't know if it was because of what my mom said, despite it, or she said it because I wanted to do it. I don't know if it's chicken or egg. It doesn't matter. But I remember I was young. I was going into high school and I wanted to join theater. And my mom looked at me and said, "You can't join theater. If you join theater, you'll turn gay." And that drove into my head, like that theater was the thing that would turn me gay, as opposed to the fact that I was gay and that's what would turn me gay. And and then finding out new words too, which was wonderful, that I'm pansexual and just being and is, was an eye opener and all that and everything like that. And then finding out there's just a whole slew of sexualities. Even those can change over time as well. And then just to let everyone know, because I did see the asking pronouns. So I'll give my whole little my thing. I am a non-binary or binary nonconformist is another term you can look up. Gender fluid, pansexual. My pronouns are he, she, and they. And I know that's a lot of words, but the reason I take a lot of these, that these terms matter to me, is because a lot of people like to be sorted into one house. And for me, I wouldn't go to Hogwarts. When people ask me what my house is, I tell them I wouldn't be at Hogwarts. I would be trying to steal secret magic and bring it to the Muggle world. That's my job. So, so there's a lot of terminology. There's a lot of things that you can pull from. The non-binary or gender nonconformist refers to the fact that I personally feel like that gender doesn't have there's not a male female identity for me. I can behave like a female even when I'm dressed male, or I can behave like a male even when I'm dressed female. I don't
bring
have
your pictures up now to explain.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. And then I can also find myself somewhere between in some androgynous form where that's me. I'm wearing a velvet jacket and a button up because I like doing that, and I like keeping my hair long and being weird and vampiric. And so that's that. I am presenting myself male, but that doesn't mean I am male. So he, she, they is fine. And then this is androgynous. I love the David Bowie and Freddie Mercury are my heroes and all of that. And then of course when I'm female, I'll look this way and I'll be in this way. So having that full scope of my identity lets me kind of code switch with people and feel comfortable with whatever they're comfortable with. He, they. Okay, well, nice to meet you. I'm really okay across the board. One thing I was talking about before, and I will say, is the reason I have Evelyn in my name is because if I'm in a situation where I don't want to draw attention to myself, and this is why I say this isn't about attention. Right now, I am doing a show specifically with you to give attention to something and to talk about it. But there are times I don't want attention. I want to just be this and be out with friends, and I don't want to be harassed or have problems or anything like that. So having Evelyn so that people can just say, hey, Evie or Evelyn, how are you doing? And all that. Then I don't have to worry about somebody going, hey, Jack, and then everyone looking and side-eyeing and giving me problems and all of that. So that's part of the naming convention. What this is not, and this is actually something I did want to mention too. I'm sorry, I'm just going on and on and on.
That's fine.
But I wanted to mention was what this is not, and what was really, really damaging to people is to talk about any of these things as a mental illness or very specifically dissociative identity disorder, because I believe in dissociative identity disorder. I do understand it very, very well. Any of the borderlines or any of the DIDs or any of those psychological issues that people have, those are real and need to be addressed. Those are very, very real. But I'm not looking at myself and going, I secretly have another whole persona I need to bring out and be and all that. I know that under the makeup and under the hair and everything else, that Evelyn's not another human being. She's literally just a name I can use so that I don't have to worry about things. And that was through a long journey. Personally, my journey actually went from deciding whether or not and feeling comfortable enough that knowing that trans might have been an option for me, that being completely a trans woman was a potential option that they're proposing. I'm sorry, I just saw something about the DSMV. They're proposing changes to the DMV as far as listing. That's wonderful. That is so amazing. There needs, I think, two things that definitely need to be looked into is definitely what we talk about for DID, and also how we talk about PTSD. And I love this new thing that we're talking about with now rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, and that we're bringing dysmorphia as a thing, or RSD. That is now a big thing we're talking about. But that's a whole nother subject. If you want to look into it, please do. I'm a big advocate for it. Talking about rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, it is it's very much it's something that a lot of cult survivors deal with. And it's not the actual PTSD that's bothering you. You're fine with that. You're not bothered by anything that happened. You're free of your past. But then any new rejections that come into your life because of how you dealt with that old rejection still causes you to cycle. And so just to let you know, it's a great one. And that is one that actually is something that is something that needs to be helped with children, because as soon as you get them on this mentality of rejection, then that's what continues to keep that cycle going. It's not a thing. It's not like, because we think of psychologists sitting there and saying, well, tell me about your mother, right? And it's like, well, that's all done. I finished all that. I got through all that. But now these new issues are actually my new rejection. But that PTSD works as a diving board to cause the depressions and everything like that. But I'm on a million different tree branches. Where
you talking about rejection has made me think about, like, back to being a Jehovah's Witness kid. Like, not only are you rejected because you can't go to, like, birthday parties, you can't get involved in Christmas, you're also having to reject friends and reject other people. So I never thought about it until you saying that made me think, like, it's both sides. So you're rejected and having to reject people, and that's a horrible feeling as a child.
I did, honestly, that didn't even come together. But yeah, us being trained to be rejectors, that religious people, majority of them, and actually I would say all of them, because religion is about this is what you accept, this is what you reject. But the idea of, I didn't even think about that, but you're 100% right. Rejection is built into us, and if we don't reject, then we are rejected. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I
didn't until you said it, and it just like clicked. It's weird, like how after such a long time things just click in your head, and you just think, why didn't I think about that before? It's just like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, and we see this too in your page. You'll see new people come in and want to tell other people how they found their new identity, and immediately want to shut everybody else's way of finding their identity. And they're not trying to be hurtful. That's not their intention, but they do it anyways. I mean, it looks like we have a troll. Look at that. Look, literally, you say the devil's name and they appear. That's wonderful. Actually, thank you. Thank you for being here.
They go under Lord is King, like, really?
Yeah. But you know what? Thank you for being here, because this is actually, I don't want to hurt this person. If you don't mind, I'd like to take just a moment, because this is what I was going to talk about, being hateful as well, and switching my mentality. I would never have switched my mentality about people until somebody looked at me and said to me, I'm not mad at you for the way that you're hurting me right now. I was told this. I was a biggest advocate online. And it's funny because, we're not supposed to go to other websites and do that. But I was like, well, I'm so powerful, and my parents are anointed, and I'll be fine. So I went online and I was trolling, and I was doing the exact same thing. And funny enough, like right now, your issue about athletes and all that, honey, I'm not playing on the Olympics. I'm not doing any of that. And that's all. Their decisions of what they want to do in the Olympics is up to them. We're talking about literally human rights and people deciding how they want to be. And to be perfectly honest, I've got a friend who could probably bench press, who's a female, who could probably bench press more than any guy I know anyway. She's insane. She looks like She-Ra, and she's just ridiculous. And so this identity that you have, this idea that you're fighting, and you're doing this, and your reasons for being hateful, and what you're doing about it, I get it. I was there, and I'm not asking you to or forcing you to change, but I'm not mad at you, because I understand. I really, really do.
I will just add in here, dude, if you're going to come in here and try and be a troll, learn grammar. Okay.
Yeah. That though, grammar is important, because it does change the sentence completely.
They try and be clever, and then they can't even fucking spell. It just like disputes the whole mission, basically. So anyway, thank you for coming and wasting your time with us. And we won't waste any more time with you. Getting back to, was you baptized?
I was baptized at 17 or 18, I think. I think it was 17. I was on a whole movement of trying to like get married. Like I said, I was trying to escape from my household. So I knew if I got married, I could escape from my personal household. And then so I got married at 17 or 18, baptized at 17, married by 18, and it was just like that was quick turnaround. I remember it being the strangest thing, because I felt like I didn't feel like anything was different about who I was, and yet everyone was treating me different. I didn't feel any different. I didn't come out of the water and go, wow, now I'm a whole new person. I came out of the water going, okay, no, there's no flying birds, there's no a choir of angels, there's nothing. You come out of the water and you're completely different, but everyone surrounds you and they talk to you like you're different, and they treat you differently. And what's interesting about that is that to me is attention seeking. that to me is this idea of, here's this thing that people are telling you you have to go do to get attention, to get what you want. That's like, go pass this test so that everyone will legitimize you. And that's a weird one. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm putting them in timeout because
I gotcha.
They're just distracting from the comments, because now I'm having to scroll to find proper comments.
Sure.
But yeah, like, I came out of the water thinking at 13 years old, oh cool, if Armageddon comes tomorrow, I'm not going to die now because I'm baptized. And that was the whole reason that I did it, because my parents kept saying to me, if you don't get baptized and Armageddon comes tomorrow, you're going to die. So, we only blocked him for 5 minutes, really? Well, he might troll off, like, he might get bored. But yeah, so obviously,
positive praise is a great positive praise is a great way to put it. You get positive praise, you get positive. There's a feedback loop. It's not actually that anything happened or changed about you. Everyone makes you feel different. Like, I thought it was going to be different the second I came up, but it's not what happened. It's when they come up to you and go, now you're one of us. Now you're safe. Now you're good. Now you've done the right thing. As opposed to, if something feels natural internally, if something feels natural beforehand, that's a totally different situation.
Anthony said you're an inspiration.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. I really appreciate everyone here who's being supportive. And I do, like I said, I know trolls are gonna happen. People who are angry are gonna happen. All that's going to happen. And honestly, I think the biggest thing I would say about that is, when we stop to look at the cultural fixation on sexuality and genitals is dangerous. That it creates pedophiles. It creates anger and aggression. It creates this idea that you have to push somebody else down because of their genitals. It creates all these ideas. I mean, the question he asked, right? The troll asked was, do I sit or stand to pee? That has nothing. Why would you ask a woman that just on a regular basis? Would you ask a man that just regular talking to them? It's inconsequential to your gender. It's not. You don't. Why are you going to walk in with me? Do you need to go to the bathroom with me? Do you need to?
And I will freely tell you, if I go to a public toilet, I don't sit down. I'm female and class myself as female. I ain't sitting on no public toilet. So the question is irrelevant.
Right. I really think this is important. There's a beautiful article on Vox, great resource, about how the idea of actually gendering children is very, very new. It's a capitalist idea. This is actually not an old thing. In the old days, everybody puts on a dress because it's cheaper to make them, and you're a kid and you're dressing like a girl. And I mean, we got pictures of presidents wearing dresses as kids, and that's just fact. And we don't. I actually know the Bible probably a lot better than you. Also, I've read every single one of them.
Like, if Jesus is our friend, he's cool with this dude. So just troll on as well. Like, why are we attracting trolls today? Are they bored on a Sunday afternoon or something? Who's just like, yes, shouldn't you be at church? Like, really? Your baptism is null and void. Yes, it is null and void. That's the way we prefer it. Thank you very much.
I'll tell you what. If I'm not going to heaven, and you don't have to worry about me being there, then we're good. I don't have to be in heaven. I'm not with you. And to be perfectly honest, if heaven is just filled with people like you, I don't want to be there anyways. So can we call it that? Can we say that that's where I stand? And
heaven would be boring as hell, man. I don't want to go there with a bunch of stiffs. Like, really? No, very not. All right.
Oh, what did Courtney say? God's plan isn't the only valid plan.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that one.
Very much. And Jesus is our friend. If you go back 3 minutes, I've always said that question is irrelevant because I'm a female and I don't sit on public toilets. So it looks like I'm going to have to put him in time. Like, what is wrong with these childish people? Like, please, honestly, grow up. All right, time out. I feel like I'm like some sort of like headmistress of a junior school here. Do you know what I mean? Crazy. So going back to where you said that your mum said that if you join in drama school that that would turn you gay. So yes. What age was you when she said that?
So I was just going into high school, so I would have been about 15, 16. So that's so I remember it very distinctly. I ended up doing a lot of like after school Bible studies with people because I just wanted to hang out with all the girls in my class. So we did that and that was fun. And I also joined the water polo team because I wanted to hang out with all the boys in my class. And and so I would kind of jump between them and just kind of do whatever I wanted, but justify it because that's what religions do anyways. They do what they want and they justify it in their head. It's a lot of justification because honestly, the Bible's nothing but a bunch of contradictory statements anyways. So there's a lot where you can kind of go, well, this scripture says this, so I can justify this idea, or this one says this, and I can justify that idea. If you're looking at New Testament, I mean, there's so many religions now that are saying, well, this is totally fine and didn't a while ago, or and so if you are trolling and counting your time, so to speak, it's just for you. It's not for anyone else. It's not going to change. It's only going to reinforce what everybody else is doing. If you're softer and gentler, you might change somebody's mind. If you come at people kindly, you can change people's minds about anything. That's what we learned from the JWs, right? They were right. They did, in fact, have a huge growth in the 70s because they found a way to sell gently an idea that was better than other ones. It's not wrong that how they taught people to be converted, what they converted you to was wrong, but how to help people is not wrong. To be gentle, to be kind. At a certain point, you do have to put up walls and put up boundaries, and I appreciate you blocking them so we could have a conversation. But I encourage people to a certain extent, find your level, find your ability to be gentle and to offer to people constantly a gentle approach to coming and talking about it. If that's not going to work and that's not going to shut down a person, then that's then at that point you can block. That's what the block button's for. But
I have a problem with being gentle to trolls.
I can imagine. It really is just an advocacy I push just because of my own ability to find it because of a gentle person in the homosexual community who said, I know I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. You're not hurting me because you're hurting me. You're hurting me because you intend to hurt me. You're hurting me because you've been taught to hurt me. And that is something that is absolutely true. You've been taught to hurt somebody because at the end of the day, screaming that somebody has to change or to change never does it. That's not, it's not when you're being screamed at and screamed at and screamed at suddenly, I'm not going to at the end of this call go, you know what? Him typing repent one letter at a time. Gosh, what a great argument. I never thought of that. You know what? I've changed I'm done. I'm you know what? Let's just get me some baby wipes. I'm taking it all off. What was I thinking? That's not what's going to do it. However, if you have a feeling of this ability to communicate, like I said, my dad didn't want to talk to me. To this day, does not want to sit down and have a conversation. Does not want to even discuss the issues. And that's why even when he said, do you sit or stand? Let's talk about that. But honestly, it doesn't. The genitals aren't where gender comes from, in my opinion. So we're at a impasse of what we believe. That's not where we stand. So it doesn't matter what I do. And to be perfectly honest, what I do in the bathroom is weird that you want to know that. it's very weird that you want to know what how a child. It's weird that we have what gender reveal parties are actually. And my partner was the one who coined this. I wish I had to come up with it, but she said it's a genital reveal party because they're not anything yet. They're just a blob of. It's just a blob. So saying it's a boy or a girl, or it should wear blue or pink, or it should do anything, when it's just a blob of that goes and is literally trying to understand the universe around it. All we're doing is saying there's, it's this. All we're doing is we're having a big party to say it has this genitals.
Amy is making a very spot on point here that the people that use religion, hateful, hypocritical, the trolls, are not trying to save you or bring you to Christ. They're using God as an excuse for their feeling of satisfaction when they spew hate.
Interesting.
And
I really like that. Okay. And then at that point, then there's no conversation. That's a really good point. It's
an excuse for a lot of people. Like some people aren't, and I've seen that in a lot of like groups, and they don't use it as a genuine concern or, oh no, you're not going to go to heaven. They use it to basically hate speech and to back that up as an excuse and a reason for being that way. I've seen that a hell of a lot. So when your mom said that to you, how did that make you feel? Because obviously at that point then you was aware of how you was already feling.
Well, I was aware of already how effeminate I was behaving often, and I became hyper aware of at that point. But I never and what I'll say to that is, like, 1 minute femininity is a loose term as well. I got along better with girls. I had in high school, I was surrounded by 5 girls, none of which I wanted to date. I just liked hanging out with them, and it was never about and sexuality was never a thing. So it was more about, like, I just feel comfortable with these people, but also I liked doing certain activities. Like I said, I liked playing water polo. So, and I liked doing art. So I paint, and what's interesting is we always talk about, well, your attractions, right? Your attractions define who you are and who you're going to marry. And to that, I always say, if that were true, and we look at this from a scientific standpoint, if somebody gets married, if they suddenly are walking down the beach, let's say you're a guy and you're a cis hetero guy, and you're walking down the beach and you're with your wife, and you see a woman in a tiny G-string bikini and everything, and you're just turned on by her. Just because you are. You're not trying to be, you're not going to cheat, you're not doing anything else, you just see her, and that's just how you feel. Then is your sexuality now stopped and ended because your attractions ended because you married the person you married? What happened there? What went wrong? Because obviously now you're broken and everything's wrong, and you're gonna die in hell because you looked at a woman and were attracted to them, right? That's not the case, right? That's not how any cis hetero male would look at that. They would go, no, that's completely different. And to Matt, I'd say attractions are attractions. If you have found a partner or partners or whatever, and people that you're attracted to and you're staying with and you're connected to, and yet you can still look at another person and still be attracted to them without pursuing on it, then you have just healthy attractions. So just because I'm not now, because I've had this, like, well, since you're this way, does that mean you like men now? Like, as though that now has to be, or you're leaving your partner because my partner's female. And to that, it's like, well, that's not how that works. Attraction doesn't then dictate who you are, who you've always been attracted to, or who you were attracted to as well. It's a completely separate thing. Attractions, sexualities, and all that, because and this also really, really plays onto the notion of, this is why we need to look at things as far as, like, what is a mental disorder versus what is an actual, like, what is just our genuine selves and what are our true selves. Because every single thing I'm attracted to can consent. And one thing that the other side will try and push is, well, if you let gays marry them, then children are next. And what about animals? And it's like, to relate people who can consent with people who and animals who cannot consent is weird. Because that means that you're already saying that the creature that you are attracted to can't consent. And they probably don't want the woman they're attracted to consent. They just want them to say yes because that's what they want them to do and they want to take that person. And so creating this notion, this comes down to the whole idea of consensuality, that our attractions play a huge role in who we look at. And we say, wow, that is something beautiful to me. Our sexuality says that is something I could either have children with or live with, or I feel arousal from, or all those other identities. And we can get entire discussion onto sex education and how messed up that is. And then the third thing is then gender, and a completely separate thing. And then we can look at gender and say, well, what does gender mean? And what does our identity as a gender mean for us? And once we separate it, not even just into two things, not another binary, but even three, and even more than that, and to say, well, I have always grown up with this attraction and also this gender and everything like that. Because in my past, I've had girlfriends, I've had boyfriends, I've had different people that were close to me, and to what level sexually I met with them didn't matter to what attraction level I had to them. And this is that whole thing of, well, do you sit or stand when you pee? It's like, well, you're going way down the road. That's not even what we're talking about. We're talking about right now, I'm wearing makeup. You're too far down the camera. Why don't you come back up and look at my eyes? And so the identity of our genders being separated from sexualities and even our attractions then creates this idea that whatever we are with any person and connection we make, we can then be safer, feel safer with them and make them feel safer. Because we talked about that idea of rejection, right? Rejection is something we can experience and also something we can force onto others. And so when we push them into the situation where they feel like they have to be something for us because we're something, that ends up being very, very problematic. I think a lot of guys think that people like me are going into clubs and trying to trick them and force them to, and all that. And can that happen, and has that happened? Probably. Just as much as a guy going and date raping a woman has happened. I'm sure a guy dressing up as a woman and date raping a man has happened. And I'm sorry for that. That is not good. And those attackers should be dealt with.
Because that's on the abuser, not
And so those people should be dealt with, just like anyone who does any kind of harassment, any kind of sexual harassment, any kind of gender harassment, any kind of harassment toward anyone else. If you went up to a woman and said, your makeup doesn't look good, and she is a full makeup, you look like a man, that's abuse. That you're just being abusive regardless. So no matter what it is, no matter what, if we were two women having a conversation, like if I was and I don't even want to use biological if I was an assigned woman, not biological, but an assigned woman, and you were an assigned woman, we're having a conversation, and this troll came on and said, you look like a dude, everyone else would be yelling at that person anyways, because they'd be like, you're an asshole. Just for attacking somebody for wanting to just look the way they do. So it's no different with any, that's why the separation of what you're doing and who you are, and then all of the different parts end up needing to be separated. And the more we keep communicating and separating, I think one of the most damaging things that ever happened, honestly, in history was when the 66 books that are the canon Bible became canon. Because up to that point, you went and you found all of these philosophies, and you pulled from all of these different things, and you went and you found stuff from here, and you read a book over there. And I know this might actually trigger some people. I'm going to say something a bit controversial for Ex JWs, which is I love the Bible. I am obsessed with the Bible. I love it. I have so many of them. I have torn it apart. I have read it. I have dissected it. I love it. It is the most amazing. And I'm going to explain myself. Let him finish. I love it because historically speaking and what it stands for and how it has affected, I don't like what it's done, but what it actually is, if you tear it apart and look at it as this poetic book of history, there are no history books that ever survive. None. Anthropologically, history books do not survive. They never do. They're burned away as soon as the politics changes. But what never dies away, and the only way we actually know what our real history was and who we are, is because of our folklore. And when you look at the Bible as a piece of folklore, as a book right next to Grimm's fairy tales, and the Lady of the Largest Heart and Hadwana, the first religious book ever written, honestly, was by a woman, an Akkadian princess. It's amazing. It's incredible. About the story of Ishtar or Inanna. And then you have all of these other ones. You have the Nibelungenlied. You have all these Eastern philosophies and everything. And when you can pull them that way, when you can look at them in context, and when you can read them as poetry, you have this Gnostic or knowledgeable approach to what our history and our identities are and who we are. Because then when you start looking at the past, then you can go, what I'm doing isn't new. LGBTQ isn't new, honestly. This is a cultural thing that has existed in history forever. And to be perfectly honest, it's in the Bible. There are biblical stories, and in the Midrash and in other stories and in Jewish lore and everything else, there are stories about how we have narratives about people behaving a certain way or acting a certain way. We can tie those to other things. We know Solomon's story just from the Book of Solomon, right? But there's a bunch of other ones outside of that were all the Arabic stories and all the Middle Eastern stories. We have the 1001 Nights includes Solomon's narratives, because everyone was writing fan fiction about the narratives and about the folklore that existed. These are the original Marvel's Avengers and DC superheroes. These are all of these characters. And so when we look at them that way, what we can do, honestly, and we see that there's so many amazing tales about all these incredible people that we call gods, that we call light versus darkness, or all that. We see that we have been having this. There is no difference to this fight, and there's not any less of me and you and you and you and you and all you people from the past as there are now. Everyone who wanted to be what they wanted to be existed then as well, because by looking at that and going, there was a city like Sodom and Gomorrah, it means there was a city like Sodom and Gomorrah. How wonderful is that, to know that, to be told, oh my gosh, there was a city like Las Vegas that existed then. There was a city like London or any great metropolitan, right? There was a city where people gathered together. The very first city that ever existed in the Bible was made by Cain, and it was made by Cain's son. There was a city, and it talks about they made musical instruments, and they learned how to do woodworking and metalwork and did all of this cool stuff and helped move the future forward. And to think about that, like, oh my gosh, if you look at the Bible as an anthropological viewpoint, it's literally, are you a city folk or you are a country folk? Are you progressive or are you not? And that has been the big fight. And so you sit there and you go, oh, well, of course they're going to villainize the city folk, because it's all about shepherds. It's all about they're going to villainize people who do agriculture. Right in the beginning, Cain and Abel's a story about who's better, agriculture or shepherding. That's it. That's all it is. What was better at the time? Because that was the political issue of the time, was what was better. So if you're a farmer, guess what? You're breaking the very, very first thing. If you believe in farming and agriculture, you're already against the Bible, because that's the very first thing it says is wrong. But then it changed. And then God was suddenly okay with it after he killed everyone. So, it's like, so if God can change his mind and 1 minute not be okay with agriculture, and then the next minute be like, no, we're building our own farms and we're going to establish city, and now it's okay because we have one, then you just have to keep going with that idea that change is always happening, and we're constantly in this battle, and it's like, it's
like history just repeats itself over and over. And like the amount of people that say like, "I'll mention wear makeup," and I'm like, look back in history. At some points, men wore more makeup than the women.
Yep.
So like, why are you dissing it now? It's like,
oh yeah, they would look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, you must be an Egyptian king," you know? And I'd be like, "Honey, yes," you know. I'll take it.
You've got the Bangle song stuck in my head now. Like an Egyptian. I'm just looking at my notes now, trying to see. I got engrossed in listening, so I wasn't putting up any comments then either. So sorry, people. I'm just looking at my notes, like where we got to. So you was talking about when you left, you got into spirituality, psychology, and magic.
Okay, so I keep changing the term of what I would identify as. I love occultism. I think that Satanism is one of the most important things in this country, particularly. I think in the UK as well, that it's really doing good work, because what essentially that does is that is the idea that if you have a society that plays on the idea of free speech, that free speech should be for everyone then. And so they always like say, okay, well, if you can put up a giant cross on the lawn, then we're also going to put up a Baphomet. If you do this, then we do this to show genuine equality, that you're not just making a law so that you can let this one side of people do it. And that's what I think one of the greatest things Satanists do is they are, they're not murdering rabbits underground or doing, killing goats or anything. They are literally, their activism is, yes, they protect the freedom for religion of all. Thank you. And the freedom from religion. It's wonderful. So that is one thing I heavily identify with. However, I also have looked heavily into different forms of spirituality, from Eastern to Western. So Wiccanism, Eastern mysticism, Gnosticism. Personally, I love Taoism. Anyone, and I don't like to push religiously because I did that enough for 30 years. But if you just want to, if you're ever feeling over anxious or anything like that, read some. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Read some Taoism. Read some Lao Tzu. And if you want to have it in really nice bite-sized chunks, the Tao of Pooh, like Winnie the Pooh, is one of the most beautiful books ever. A. Milnes actually gave permission to a writer to write a book about how Taoism the Winnie the Pooh is a book about Taoism, and it's gorgeous. It's amazing. What was I going on? Okay, but in spirituality and specifically in magic practice, one thing that we are always looking at, and especially in studying history, is that we've always had terminologies that would explain something or someone. So if you look at like let's open Grimm's fairy tales, and you're like, oh, and then they came across a troll or they came across a goblin. What is that troll and what is that goblin? That troll is, and we're reusing words from the past. It's great. A troll is somebody who's gatekeepers and says no and yells at you and does all that, right? We're reusing terminologies that we've always had in existence. We're reusing psychological tools that we've always had, and this imagery that's so deeply seated in us. And so I found and was absolutely fascinated in and got into this coven that really opened my eyes. And I just joined them for a little while and kind of got a feel for what they were teaching, and quickly went, I don't need the cult stuff, but what I always like to say is everywhere has something of value. Like I said earlier in the discussion, I learned to read in prison. Even the JWs had something of value. What they did wrong and how they hurt is terrible, and what all the terrible things they do. But that doesn't mean, because the best kind of truths or the best kind of lies are half truths, right? Or have some kind of value in them. That doesn't mean that they didn't have a great theocratic school system, that if you took advantage of it. It doesn't mean that they didn't have a good cultural connection of meeting together. What it meant is that what you were learning there was damaging and harmful and everything. So if you see something and you see something you want to go into it, study it. But a cult is something that hurts you on your way out. A culture is something that you can go into and come back out of, and there's no detriment to it. So it's but get some sleep, get some rest. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here, though.
We can
Appreciate
catch
you.
up on the rest tomorrow.
Yeah. So one thing I'm very, very active on making sure people see is that there's a cultural, that when you want to embrace certain cultures, when you want to embrace certain identities, beliefs, all that in spirituality, don't go in with this idea that you then have to attest to everything or take it at full value or learn it completely, with the exceptions of ones that are that way, like hoodoo and voodoo, which have their own, they have their inclusive thing and they have their own thing because it is a very, it's a discipline, it's a studied skill, or certain things like that are studied skills. Otherwise, though, go in trying to learn information about spirituality and about magic. And the best way to do that, so the tarot cards were big for me. I love art. I do digital art now. I've always done painting and things like that. My father was an artist and was something I liked that I took from him and learned from him. And what was amazing about the tarot cards was, on one hand, you can look at them and say, well, how is it working? What is the way that it just resonates and everything? Is it all in your head? Is it all just fake? Is it all just cold reads, all that kind of stuff? Or is it some kind of higher mystical power or your own self? Is it about multidimensionalism and about the string theory? Do we get into all that stuff? How does it work, right? How? And until we figure that out, until we have the technology to figure that out, at the moment, I'm going, well, we don't know yet, but we do know why it works. And we do know, or not why, but we do know that it works. We do know that it is an effective tool and it does work for a majority of the time. So because of that, I go, okay, well, I like that. Something that is effective, it does work, and you can study it, you can track it, and you can say, okay, for the most part, a lot of people really, really embody this and really feel connected to this, and it helps as a psychological tool. It helps as a therapeutic tool. It helps as a identifying tool. It helps you to make decisions. It helps you to get your brain activated by looking at all these images. Then I'm for it. And so when you do that and you start thinking in those terms of, instead of going, this is wrong because, or it doesn't work because I can't analyze, I can't know why it works, you shut yourself off to a lot of things that could end up being helpful to you. It is absolutely, I will say, the thing about the tarot, and what you have to understand about the tarot is, the original tarot was a card game for rich people. The Tarocchi was just, all the old cards are an Italian card game for rich people. Honestly, if you look at a pack of playing cards and you open those up, those are tarot cards. They're the exact same cards. It's heart, diamond, wand, and heart, diamond, club, and spade is the sword, the four suits of the tarot, and your king, queens, and everything. They're the exact same cards. We are using them identically in the way that we behave and the way we communicate. There are certain games that you play with it, and to see if you can get your brain to put certain matches together and everything. The imagery in them and the meanings behind them and how you feel about art is no different than walking through a museum and saying, that piece makes me feel this way, or that piece makes me feel this way, because all the imagery in those cards has information about what we are culturally. This is why somebody can take those and make their own set of cards with even like fandoms on them. You could, like, I did a Disney tarot card deck, and it will mean still something to people because they are meanings that have a lot to do with it. So to answer your question, you do not have to be scared of tarot cards. This is something that is really, really a dangerous perpetuation. What I will say is you have to be careful of things where you literally summon or ask entities into your home or to do things. And what I will say about that is, don't play with Ouijas. Unless you know what you're doing and you are using a spirit board, not a Ouija, and you know what you're doing and how to close and how to do all that, and you've practiced with that and you've learned from somebody, do not use spirit boards. That is a very, very dangerous thing. The tarot, however, is your communication with your personal spirits, with your identities, with things you're already communicating with, things you're already working with, energies you're already working with, because it's you actively analyzing those and doing that.
Yeah. Look, I was saying to you, I got into tarot cards quite soon after I left, because one of my best friends brought some round that were passed down to her by Nan, and we did these cards, and they were spot on, and I was just like, oh wow, these are really interesting, but I've been told they're wrong and they're to do with the devil and all that. And then I just thought, let's do them again. And then I got into them, and my boyfriend at the time brought me a pack of tarot cards, and like I was saying to you, I sleep with mine under my pillow now, but I haven't done mine for a couple of months, and I want to get back into them. But they've never really scared me, and I've never worked out for myself how they work, but they work. So I've always been the mainstream of now. I don't have to know how everything works. I don't need all the answers. Do you know what I mean? It works, and I can accept that. I don't need to know how it works. I just know it works. So, and I was saying, me and you need to do another chat live where we're going to get more into like tarot cards and magic and all that kind of stuff, because I am really intrigued by that. I watched The Craft just before I left the religion, and that got me really interested into magic, but I never got into it properly. I just looked into little bits, and I've got a pendulum and I use that, and you know, I just find all that kind of stuff like really interesting.
Ellen Wynn does a lot of really great, and it's spelled LLEWEYN, I believe. I'm probably doing that wrong. Gabby, you could probably write it in the correct way to pronounce it. But Ellen Wynn does an amazing series of like what things are, what Sabbats there are, ways to practice. Does a lot of like sells a lot of good things to just kind of get you invested into it. And then there's a lot of great people who do teaching. I personally wanted to get a formal training because I did a lot of self-teaching. I learned with my, thank you very much. Yeah, Evelyn. I learned with my partner, and then I also learned from the Love Witch is her name. She's a burlesque dancer, part of Emily Autumn's band, which is this indie band in New York, and she's amazing. But Veronica Varlow taught really well because her grandmother, she taught the traditional way for the Rider-Waite, but she also then went into like other cards as well. And what's amazing is that when you look at all the different imagery that we have in art and how it always is evolving, it really, Veronica Varlow, it's amazing to see how we can see what the past has to present to us, and what those symbols still resonate, and what new things we are also looking at, and it helps us to get a full spectrum of our identity and what we're looking at. So one thing I would say, and it's a tarot cards are a money pit. So that's one thing I will say. Once you have one deck, you can't stop at one. It's like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This artwork's beautiful and all that. So it is a money pit, and I'm totally acknowledging of that. So like, and it's so interesting because we talk about, a lot of people say to me, well, see, it's not real because all that the magic community is trying to do is get your money. And I think to myself, well, money's an arbitrary system that we use to communicate anyways, like just as much as anything else. When I hand you a dollar or a pound, right? I'm asking for an experience. I'm asking for something. I'm all that because we all chose as a culture, as a worldwide culture, that's how we're going to exchange experiences. So if that's what they want for the experience that they're offering, and that's how they experience the offering that they're giving, then yeah, of course it is. Of course that's what it is. But that doesn't make it wrong or not true. It just makes it something you're willing to spend your money on. If you walk, and this is always my thing, it's only a cult if you walk away from it and the people hurt you. If they tell you you're wrong, or they cut you off, or they scold you, or they make you feel bad about leaving it. Because I could walk away from tarot cards and no one's going to look and go, oh no, now there's going to be the tarot council is going to come at you and tell you, oh, how dare you, So, but yeah, just in your approach to any kind of magic, in your approach to anything, there is so much positive information online. And what I will say about anything in transgenderism, in LGBTQ, there's so much positive information. Look up the positive information, and I'm going to say this, look up the negative things as well. Listen to what the trolls say and why they say it, because the only way to really confirm your belief on anything is to have it challenged. The only way to really, really, truly see what you want and what you are and who you are is to be willing to challenge yourself in that identity. Go and get enough information, have that feeling about it, get that sense of who you are, and then challenge it. and then go and see. And why does anybody think I'm wrong about this? If you only listen to one side of a news report, what you won't be able to do is communicate to somebody who comes at you with the other side. Because if you already know what their side is, you can say, oh yeah, I get where you're coming from. I know why you came to that conclusion. Here's where we can look at that, and here's what we have to see with that idea, though. If you don't see both sides, and this might be very triggering, just because, like I said, my own story is I went to my dad and said, can we have a conversation? And he went, no, I don't want you shaking my faith. And so I think that when we look and we go, my faith isn't shaken about this, my identity isn't shaken, my belief about something is not shaken, because I've done enough research in it and also against it. One of the things the JW say, right, is don't go on any other websites. Don't look into anybody else. Don't read apostate literature. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if they truly believe they were the truth, you know what they would say to you? Is you can go look up anything and you will not have your mind changed. If they really knew that they had the right information, they would say, go ahead. Look up any apostate literature you want, because you know what's going to happen? You're going to read everything that's out there, and you're going to come back and say, oh, yeah, no, totally. What was I thinking? No, that all of it was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. You're the only ones that are right.
And do you know what's funny now? They tell you not to go and read their old literature.
They can't even. They can't
direct you to their own stuff now, because like that is wrong now. So it's just like, it's just ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, I think one of the greatest things that ever happened to tear down religion as a whole, honestly, is everyone keeping records and keeping track of it. You know, and if someone brings to me and says, well, here I have undeniable proof of why tarot cards aren't real and all that, I will, and I've seen all of it, and I believe, and actually I accept some of it. I do know that when I'm doing somebody's tarot reading, a large part of what I'm doing is a cold read on them. I know that. I don't know. I won't deny that. I love skepticism. When somebody went, well, you're just doing a cold read, I'm like, yeah, of course I am. But isn't that amazing? And isn't that an incredible power? And then on top of that, I pull the right card, and then I also give them that information, and we're able to translate that. Isn't that amazing? Like, that's not a superpower to you? That's not incredible? That's not amazing that humans have that capacity to, on one hand, analyze a piece of artwork, look at that. That's not beautiful all on its own. Like that's something possible. And to me, if you need it to be some mystical, magical, unexplainable force, and that's the only way that it can exist, that to me actually is more damaging. I like the idea that there are cerebral pulses happening all at the same time. There are spirits in work while there's also this, because we're complex. Human beings are very, very complex. And that complexity is what, and as we are moving into this future where we're seeing that microcosm of complexity in us now on the outside, and seeing what people can come up with for their complex personalities and identities and everything, I really get upset when I see somebody try to oversimplify the complexity of people. Honestly, I can't answer. Don't ask me what my Hogwarts house is. I get frustrated. I have enough issues with that woman, Rowling, as it is. I actually even once did a Harry Potter charity show and everything, and I've got a friend who's super into it, and I have absolute respect for people who love that world, and it helped them escape their cults and everything. But it is a children's book, and it oversimplifies humanity. And the idea of separating children in school is literally segregation. It's literally segregation. Stop it. We're done. We moved past it. We're accepting magic now. Can we get past segregation as well? Do not ask me what my Hogwarts house is. But that's a whole nother that is a whole nother debate for a whole nother day.
If you want to answer Gabby's question, I need to pop off to the bathroom. So
sure.
If I pop off for a few minutes while you
you have to tell me if you're standing or sitting.
I was gonna actually mention that.
No, go ahead. You're good. All right. As an artist, what's your opinion on the art in the JW books, like the Watchtowers and my book Bubba Stories? So one thing is, when you're in the JWs, you're told, oh my gosh, that is the best artwork ever. These are better artists than everyone. And I've always grown up as a Disney fan, and especially classic Disney and everything. And one thing they don't do is they don't tell you how they're doing that artwork and how they're making that artwork. And when you find out, it's all just like stolen. I mean, one thing the JWs try to take credit for is they made the first color film ever. They really do truly believe this. It's not true at all, but they will push and they will push and push and push for it. Well, you know, Emma stands up for everyone. That's what she does. Back to the artwork though. So the thing they would do, and this happened with music as well, they would say, look at our hymns. Our hymns are the best hymns. They are better than anyone else's. And when I came out, I started looking into how they did their artwork, and I looked at how they did their music. And I found that it's all stolen. It's all just things that have already existed. When they come out with Watchtower Awake articles on how to eat better, healthier, they literally have copied and pasted from recent health articles. They do all this. That's why they tell you not to look outside of it, because they will steal and steal and steal and claim that they got it from God. And so they rotoscope all their artwork, just like Disney learned to do, and just like others have done in the past on Bluth. They take almost verbatim. There's melodies where in their Kingdom melodies that if you change the note or the key just slightly, it's suddenly Gilbert and Sullivan or music from that. So seeing that and really that was a big eye opener. That one broke me because I had such love for their music and their art. And it hurt to leave because I thought if I leave, I have to now get into heavy metal and do all this other stuff, which, don't get me wrong, I also love heavy metal, and I decided to do that anyways. And I love all this other kind of music because it's amazing. I just love music. I literally, give me across the whole board. You put on anything, almost anything. And I will probably at least know where it derives from or how to break it down and look at it. I love how music in general. And so when I saw that they didn't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? The hold on it. There's a word for that. I don't know what I'm thinking. I can't think of the word. It's on the tip of my tongue, but they didn't have the rights to everything. They didn't invent the melodies. They didn't invent the way that they did their art. What ends up happening is that you can still appreciate it for what it is and how they did. But then you can actually go and find other things, because I think one thing that happens when people leave cults is they try and go 180 degrees away from what they actually liked or what they liked in it. They'll completely change, or they'll completely break away from it. And one thing I wanted to try and do was not to see the devaluation. I mean, after I left the cult, I still spent many years in a suit and tie, honestly. It was because I was dressed as the Doctor from Doctor Who, but I spent a few years in a suit and tie. And I know a lot of people who leave the cult and go, I will never put on a tie ever again as long as I live. No, it's terrible. I hate it. And and I just went, honestly, I don't mind this idea of presenting myself, of acting, but I also tried to do a lot of other things. So there's these are some of the things I've done and experienced. And I that center picture of me is very close to me leaving the cult. I mean, it is pretty much a year before. I don't have very many pictures of me younger, but that journey of going and experiencing things just because it's still wholesome things. This is up here teaching sword fighting at the Belmont Pier. At the Pirates Invasion, doing Ren fairs, going to Comic-Cons, and then down in the bottom right corner, I was working at a theme park as a live character, as an actor. Doing all of these different things still felt like I wasn't trying to say, well, forget it, I never want to be on stage again because I was on stage all growing up in the cult, or I never want to do this. I found what I still loved, while still removing the things that I didn't love and pulling away from the things that didn't do it for me and didn't work for me. And I feel like that's something that really everybody should look into it. The royalties to it. Yeah. The identities, that they didn't have they didn't have the market is the word I was looking for. that the JWs didn't have the market on the best music, the best art, the most comprehensive books, the best information out there for your health or for this or that. Every Awake that didn't come out wasn't God's gift to figure out every issue ever in your life. You know, it was just one more magazine subscription out there. And when you look at it that way and you go, it is one more magazine subscription out there, though, you can kind of go, well, other than all the horrible things they need to be prosecuted for, the people at the top need to be prosecuted for, the stuff that's in those magazines, most of it stolen, is still valuable to whoever is getting it. You know, a lot of people are like, well, would you want to see the JWs just completely just crushed? Do you want to watch a big meteor just destroy them? Like, no, those are victims in there. You don't do that. You know, one of the worst things that happened, we hear this story about like when the people in the concentration camps were saved, right? They were fed, and they brought these trucks in of food, and some of them died right there. It's a really sad story. It's always one of the hardest things to hear, is that idea that they came to save the people out of the concentration camps, and they fed them, and that's what killed them. They had survived the entire time during the Nazi encampments, and all of these people died when they were fed because they were force fed too quickly, too fast. There's people in here that need to. What I would rather see is, I'd rather see definitely prosecution and change in the cult. I'd rather see that happen before I see the cult just vanish completely. I would rather see things like the shunning principle removed and told that that's an illegal thing. And so when you have starvation mentally, emotionally, everything like that, I can't imagine what would happen to my parents if they did just have everything shattered to them. I think they would die. I think a lot of people I know would just be like, everything I've known for this long is broken, and they would just destroy them. So this idea of taking a gentle approach to changing people's mentality comes from this idea that if you want to help the most people, you change the environments they're in. You don't try and force them to change. You just change their environments. Honestly, it was the smartest thing the gays did, is they said, you know what? It's fine. It's okay. We don't want to change. We're not trying to change it. We're just trying to push us. We're just trying to push us. And there was a lot of pushback, and there was a lot of hate. I'm not saying there wasn't, but honestly, in the 2000s, I watched this where they went, it's just not about you. It's about us. It's not about you. It's about us. So I'm saying the same thing here. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about me wanting to change my environment, my conditions, my life. It's not about you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to change anything. Now, there are situations, and this goes to a different thing, though, like with racism, where we're so far into it now that now people do have to take action, or you are not helping. The push has happened. The things have happened. And I would say the gay community as well. Now we're at a point where those things, but while we're in the transition of trans being a thing, while we're in the transition of people being a thing, forcing everyone to just be on board immediately, or to change their thinking immediately, or you better do this, or I'm going to unfriend you, or I'm going to hate you, is the best way to honestly to just keep instilling. It's that thing of cutting people off, right? Shunning people because they don't think the way you do. So I always encourage, and my biggest encouragement is when somebody looks at you and says, I don't know how to explain this to my children, or I don't know how to explain this to my friends, or I don't know how to explain what you're doing, then to offer them always, well, I could explain it. Well, I could tell them. Let me say it then. I can explain it. Or can I teach you then? Would you like to hear from me how to explain it to them? Or is that something that you don't want to know, and it has nothing to do with the children? Because if it's something you don't want to know and it would hurt you too much, then we need to talk about that. What am I doing hurting you? Because then when you talk about that and they explain themselves and go, no, it's not. Don't worry about them. You and me, our relationship here and now. What is it that hurts you? Why is what I'm doing hurting you? Then you can then get them to discuss and say, well, it's hurting me because I'm afraid of this, or I'm hurt by this, or you're going to take over the, always the three things, right? The Olympics, right. The Olympics, the bathrooms, you're going to be in there peeing in front of my kid. Right. And it's like, honey, if your kid is inside my stall while I'm going to the bathroom, that's your kid, not me. Like, keep your kid by your side and make sure that they go in their stall and I'll be in my stall. That's why they're stalls. you know. And then the military is the big one. And I
Mm.
think, oh my gosh, I messed with this meme where somebody says, I can't trust you if I, you know, because if you're that way, if you're trans, I can't trust you in the military. I want to be by my side with somebody I can trust. And the answer to that was the scenario where you have these two guys sitting there in the bunker and they're about to go. And he says, you know, here's the plan. We got to go in there. We're going to run across enemy lines and do all this. But first, I got to make sure you have a dick. You know, it's like the very notion about everything that we look at has been so indoctrinated that the best way to discuss it is literally like this. Is just going, hey, doesn't this seem silly? It's okay. I get where you're coming from, but doesn't it seem silly if you look at it this way? Doesn't it seem silly if you look at this way? Does this still make sense when you look at it this way? And if it does, and they can convince you, and somebody can come at you and they can come up with really, really valid ideas, then you really should listen. And why I say that, I'm sorry, I am just a mile a minute. I'm gonna slow down. But why I say that is actually because I talk about, I went mentally fully trans. I did. I was ready to go surgery, HRT, everything. And for anyone who wants to know what HRT is, that's hormone replacement therapy. So if you need to know what to do with that, I was ready to go fully, and I felt so comfortable and so calm there. And then I decided to challenge myself. And this is what I talk about challenging yourself. I went and I looked up online other people at my age in my situation who had done that. And what a lot of them ended up finding out was it actually ended up not being good for them. And they were trying to encourage people to reconsider that. Because if you start and you trans at a younger age, then you have longer to feel connected to that. And you go through that puberty age being the right gender and everything's fine. But when you're already a certain age and you've been something for so long, it can end up hurting you and hurting you mentally if you don't take the time to also then consider the fact that is non-binary or gender fluid an option for you. Because then when you look at that way and you take that approach, then what you end up seeing is that, oh my goodness, if I had gone completely through it, I have done so many things and engaged so much in one identity that removing that would have literally been like having a part of me die, like killing it. And then it would have been the depression from another death. I mean, you already feel the death of all your family when you lose them. To have a death of literally part of yourself, that's a big deal. And so what I encourage anyone who's going and deciding that, why I say look at the opposite information, is this is not me advocating conversion therapy, because that is no, you have to be in this conversion therapy and you can't leave until you've been converted. That's the cult, right? That's it. That's not conversion therapy. What I'm saying is do your own research, even against your philosophy. And then if you can walk away from that and say, no, I still believe what I believe and I still feel this way and I feel strongly that this is the way for me. Because if I had come out of all that and read all of that and still came out and went, yeah, no, I still feel like a full trans is the way to go, then that would have been, I would have known for certain and I wouldn't have had any issues down the road with mental health and any issues later on. And so just to save yourself heartache later, which is something you can deal with later on. I mean, everyone who's gotten out of cults is dealing with doing therapy and reprogramming in one form or another. But if you can look at yourself honestly and say, let me challenge my belief. Let me challenge myself right now. Let me do this research. Let me look at literally the most hateful, spiteful people. Let me see what they say. Let me see what arguments come to me. Because honestly, if somebody had come up on here and had a really good argument, if a troll came on and had a good argument to me, and it got me thinking and got me to sit down and say, oh, wow, that is a really good argument. I hadn't thought of that yet. I would have taken that into consideration and add that to my repertoire of knowledge. And that would have been part of my experience now. And I would have been like, wow, that troll helped me figure out what a better thing I didn't even consider yet. We didn't have any trolls today that had good enough information to present, because I had already gone down that path. That was something I already researched. I already knew that was an argument people had, was how do you pee? It was an argument. And because I knew that was an argument already, I was ready for it. And so with everyone, I always say, go do your research against yourself. Don't just listen to your your side, that there's this whole, I look at this in the US particularly, there's the left and right, and I know it's probably there's left and right, and it's so divided, and that division, that is a false dichotomy, just like gender, just like sexuality, just like everything. It's a false dichotomy. One you can say, yes, I'm a leftist, or I'm a rightist, or I'm this, or I'm that, but when you look at their arguments honestly, sincerely, and with good intention behind it, and you then know how to communicate with it, that lets you be stronger in your belief system and deal with that. And I'm going on a cycle now, but that's just my idea.
So I've just noticed we're on an hour and 47 minutes.
Like, oh my goodness.
Flew past. So Amy asked a question, which I think would be a really good question for us to end on, actually.
Okay.
Amy, if Amy's still here. So she wants to know what in particularly in the Ex JW movement, what can we do to better create awareness, to educate ourselves and help our LGBTQ plus community feel seen and heard and loved?
There are so many ally programs that exist in different works, in different, there are so, I mean, I can't even list them all. If we can, I would love to I'll put all the different links for things in the Ex JW page, but there are so many communities. There are so many things. Honestly, if you see something, if you see something, say something, that old adage. If you see, I love the idea that if you see somebody being bullied and you don't do anything, then you're not committing the same crime, but you are committing a different one. And that it's this idea that if you saw somebody being murdered and you didn't stop a murderer, then you're accomplice to murder. You're not the murderer, but you are an accomplice to it. So what I will say is, in allying yourself, what you can do is always say, should I make a comment about this? And the comments, like I said, they don't have to be nice, but being informed. The more information you have, the more that you don't just go, well, you're an idiot, because then that just justifies them. But you literally say, hey, actually, that's not correct because blah, blah, blah. The more you inform yourself. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I have to learn all this about all these things. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's human. That is literally what we do. Is we decided when we got off the trees that as human beings, our ability to cognizantly think of things and have conversations and all that was going to be how we communicate and how we deal socially. So yes, my answer to anyone is, well, I have to learn all this stuff. I have to learn all these pronouns and everything. The answer is yes, because that is how we are in a society. We are social creatures. We are social people. And if you're in the society, you have to learn the social rules as they're changing and evolving and continuing to increase. And your brain has the ability. And to not think that your brain has the ability to learn more and learn more and learn more isn't giving yourself enough credit. It's so thank you. I absolutely don't be afraid to stand up for people in social media and to give them options and to say, hey, do you know about this site, or did you ever hear about this? I mean, even just to /Reddit, honestly, there's some dangerous stuff in there. Like I said, there's stuff negative against it. Reddit /non-binary /gender fluid /whatever, but there's so much positive and there's so much conversation that you can have a conversation, and that's the point. It's not about finding everyone who thinks the same. It's about finding everyone who thinks very, very differently about something, to give yourself as much ammo as you possibly can to believe what you need to believe, what you'd like to believe, or what you want to end up believing.
And I'm just going to drop in here that my Facebook group is, I try and make it as LGBTQ plus friendly as possible. Obviously, some people come in and say stuff, and I let some people be educated for a while, and then if they still refuse and still carry on, then I'll boot them out. But I like to give people a chance that have come out of the religion and still got that mindset. I like to give people a chance to reason with them, and then if they're just straight up, you're still wrong, then you've given them
right, give them it, and then that's it. You don't have to stay there. You're not their parent, so you don't have to hold their hand. And I don't, by all of this, I don't mean just don't stay with belligerent people forever. It's not worth it. But give them what you can, and then you walk away. And thank you. I appreciate that. I feel supported, and I feel like it's a safe haven in their group. Absolutely.
Cool. So thank you for joining me, Jack.
Absolutely.
It's been very interesting. I can't believe how quick time went. We're nearly like 2 hours. It's just like I'm like I tried to stick to an hour, and it's just like, whew.
I appreciate it. I honestly, if you get me talking, I could go on for days. So I'm sorry for going over. Thank you for sticking around, though, everybody.
Hair floating around. I've done like longer ones before, and like I was engrossed in the conversation, so I didn't even realize like how long it had been. So, and like I said, as we're going to come back and talk more about like tarot cards and magic.
I love that.
I'm looking forward to that. So we'll talk about our experiences with that, because I'm very much as well into like spooky stuff like ghosts. I've done lives on that with another Ex Jehovahs.
I have ghost stories if you want to hear them. I actually have a bunch of.
I wanted to do more on ghost stories because I find them very interesting. I've had activity happening ever since I've left. So
awesome. That's we honestly, and what I will tell anyone who's well, yeah, obviously once you left, you were, the demons. No. There's activity when you're there too. You just didn't call it that. So it's always around, and we'll talk more about that though, and we'll
demons.
Go. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, we'll do. Oh, I know. Gabby's happy about that one. That'll be good.
Yeah. So anyone wants to check out, if you go into my YouTube, I've got like a playlist with all my stories where I've done lives. I started doing it at Halloween. Was it last year? And I started just going back in my history and just talking about stories that had happened to me and brought it up to date. So yeah, interesting. But I find all that intriguing, not scary. I love it. So yeah, it's cool.
That's fantastic. So, I want to be on during Halloween. That's my holiday. That's like it's special to me. I would love just sometime if I can. I want to come back for Halloween.
Yes. Like especially like next to Christmas, Halloween. I'm torn between both because they're both my favorites. So
absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
We'll definitely do something for Halloween. So.
All right, sounds good.
Up everything.
Awesome.
But you're definitely going to come back before that anyway, hopefully.
Absolutely.
So right, thank you everybody for watching and commenting. I really appreciate it. So have a good afternoon. It's afternoon here in the UK, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Bye. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
One last comment.
Thank you for doing the show.
Bye.